Our top story this morning is a Bloomberg exclusive. Google is the possible target of an antitrust investigation. The Federal Trade Commission is considering whether to launch an antitrust probe of Google's dominance of the internet search industry. This is according to two people familiar with the matter. They say the FTC is waiting first to see if the Justice Department will challenge Google's planned takeover of ITA software. That deal has been criticized by some as a threat to competition in the travel information search business. Both the FTC and the Justice Department are responsible for antitrust enforcement, and the outcome of the ITA deal may determine whether there is or isn't a broader investigation into Google. For more on this exclusive, let's bring in one of the two reporters who actually broke the story. Bloomberg's Jeff Bliss is on the phone. Jeff, Google wants us to believe that we can go anywhere to get search results, but the reality is Google has a lot of power with this information at its fingertips, and I take it this is at the center of the FTC's interest. Is that right?
Absolutely. Depending on, I guess, what market service you're looking at, Google has 60 to 70% of the internet search industry business. So that would be something, obviously, that whatever regulator or enforcer, U.S. enforcer decides to look at this, that would be at the core of what they're looking at. And as you said at the top, that it would be these two agencies would have to make a decision about who would take the lead role in such an investigation.
And that this isn't necessarily, well, look, an investigation would obviously be a big deal, but we've been hearing from Google's rivals about complaints that it's anti-competitive in its behavior for years already.
Right, and people, and certainly some of those rivals are saying, what's taken the government so long? But ultimately what the government looks at, they're interested in what happens to the consumer. Do prices go higher in terms of goods? Is the service itself, the internet search, is it lacking innovation because of a certain company's dominance in there, and that they don't have to innovate to get customers because they already have so many? So those are the things they look at. They're not, a lot of times, there are always competitors who are coming to these agencies and complaining about it, but what they ultimately, these people want to find out about is how's it going to hurt the consumer.
Jeff, we remember the Justice Department's investigation of Microsoft. In this case, it's the FTC looking at Google. Which ultimately would be better or worse for the company, an FTC investigation or a probe by the DOJ?
Well, there are arguments for both. Certainly a lot of Google's rivals are pressing, would love to see the Justice Department do it. That's because, obviously, the Justice Department headed up the Microsoft case, and that resulted in a consent decree that some people said has really had an impact on the company. They also were the ones who pressed Google to abandon a partnership with Yahoo a couple of years ago, whereas the FTC looked at two of Google's acquisitions, one of a company called AdMob and another called DoubleClick, and they approved those without much of a problem. But the FTC has certain administrative things it can do that it doesn't have to go to court to do that the DOJ doesn't have. So that's one advantage. And another advantage is that they essentially have some things in terms of the founding legislation for the FTC that might make it easier to bring a case.
Well, it sounds as though it's a headache for Larry Page, the new CEO, whether it's the FTC or whether it's the DOJ. Jeff, thanks very much. Jeff Bliss, one of the two reporters who broke that Bloomberg exclusive on Google facing a possible antitrust investigation.